All right, we have David Price up for our last speaker before we do the panel. The VR Industry Interest Group right now, soon to be VR Industry Forum. David works, and you also work with the HD Forum, the HDR, Ultra HD Forum as well. Whew, too many of these acronyms. David, please.
Thank you. I just remember in a previous life, that was a fascinating presentation, it really was. A previous life, I was actually helping with a person that fortunately lost his arm. He was a drummer, Def Leppard, and I was helping put together an automated electronic drum kit for him. And I went up to Abbey Road Studios where they were recording there. And I remember this one thing, it was about 35 years ago, but I remember the bass guitarist coming into the studio, playing one note and walking out, and that was him. He was done for the whole of the album. We're going to be the same way with the actors now. We look at these people, Richard Gere's going to show up, take 20, 30 mug shots, and that'll be him done. It'll all be rendered in CGI after that. Amazing. Anyway, so about a year ago, just actually short of a year ago, a group of us got together at CES. The beginning of the year. It was about a dozen people, some CTOs of some studios, a couple of operators, and just like you do, you hang out at a bar, and we started talking about VR. We started talking about all the swim lanes we were talking about, how people were sticking in their swim lanes, and how there was a need for us to have cross-industry collaboration if this market was ever going to take off. And it grew from there, and NAB, we got together again, this time incentivized by us, Ericsson, buying everybody dinner. But there was 62 of them at that time. It's grown from that time to now over 180 people on the Reflector with about 75, 76 different companies. It's growing all the time. And this is just a means of exchanging information and views. And we realized as this thing was growing, we needed to do more than just have a reflector and be more than just a place where we can exchange information. We needed to have some muscle to be able to influence the industry if this was to take off. So we decided, is it the right arrow? Okay. We decided that we needed to become more formalized. We share a common background in the TV and media space, and we're driven by a deep fear, especially from the studios, of having multiple formats. Format wars again, as a new industry emerges. It is a nightmare for everybody concerned, and it also will hold back investment. The investment's coming, but it's coming speculatively for people who trying currently to get a proprietary hold on this industry as it emerges. So one of the things that we remember, of course, is how in the early days of IPTV, we all had to have now a second remote, Roku remote or something else. We all ended up with a handful of remotes, and the nightmare for the studios especially is having to do post-production to do a number of target head-mounted devices or display devices. So that's really what drove us to get together. We have a desire to foster the standards at the standard defining organization. So the VR Interest Group turning into the VR Industry Forum is not going to be a standard defining organization, but it will, just like the Ultra HD Forum, publish things like guidelines. And one of the first things, as Ariane mentioned, is one of the working groups we've already started ahead of being a forum is one on the lexicon, and that has been widely received and well received so far. And we are hoping to publish that to the SDOs and indeed to the people who want to have a lexicon at their disposal at CES. And it'll continue to grow, I'm sure. But right now, as someone else said earlier on, there is a lot of problems in not talking the common language. So anyway, we decided we'd get together to do this, and we started this reflector. The numbers are old. This is actually from about 2 weeks ago. But anyway, so it's 176 individuals, 74 organizations. If you want to get added to this reflector, just go visit that URL, the VRinterestgroup.org. And it was actually kindly hosted by DTG, which is the people behind Freeview in the UK. Simon Gauntlet was the guy driving it there, and he's now joined Dolby, which is even better. So we're having these regular meetings, we're having bi-weekly conference calls, and like I said, we're now transitioning to a formalized organization that I hope will be powerful in guiding the industry and advocating for standards where they're needed. So we've moved forward with this. We've got our legal folks meeting on Monday. We've got the lead lawyers from Technicolor, Intel, Qualcomm, Ericsson, and I can't remember, there's one other that, so who's it? Cable Lab, sorry, yes, thank you. So I'd have been very remiss not to mention that. So they're all meeting on Monday to get together to formalize the bylaws. It's going to be based on the standard that was generated by the Dash Industry Forum and then used by the Ultra HD Forum. So we're planning to launch all this at CES 2017, the first week of January. So we have a number of areas of interest, and like I say, this goes across the entire ecosystem. That's one of the kind of ground rules, is that we want to go all the way from CCD to LCD. We want to have, or whatever the display device is, but we want to also have a very open, so it's open to academia. Baylor is part of it. Also, we have big companies and small companies. We have studios very, very involved. We have operators too as part of this, and with that common desire to avoid market fragmentation. So we believe that the VR interest group, that body of 170 or 180 now people, will become almost like continue as a reflector, but will be like a distribution list. If we want to publish, we'll publish to them probably quicker than we will to the rest of the world in our guidelines and other outputs from the working groups. So we want to accelerate the adoption of VR by removing hurdles. We want to bootstrap the industry if we can by making a common understanding of where we're going, and to provide that ecosystem that will allow this to be done more efficiently. So these are the reasons we've gone in and done the formalization of it, or starting to do the formalization. We want to have things like plugfest, interoperability. We want to have, as I said, guidelines for everything from storytelling, branch storytelling, all the way through to display. And I believe it will allow us to become a force to be reckoned with as we move forward. So I don't know if you can see this, but there's a lot of work areas. It starts off with just the general things, talking the common language. Storytelling is going to be an interesting one, because branch storytelling, it will be interesting if you have to send down metadata to the display device to allow the user to be able to choose which street they go down if they're on a car chase or whatever. Those kind of branch storytelling is a way of engaging people in the future rather than having a completely lean back experience. So that kind of metadata construction has got to be done with some standard syntax, and the whole thing goes, that kind of metadata syntax will go through all of these different work areas. Anyway, one of the things that we do know is that the technology to enable the distribution and consumption is constantly improving. We know already we're working on H.266, which is the next one after HEVC. We've gone from MPEG 1 to MPEG 2 to MPEG 4. Now, if you want over a beer, I'll tell you why we missed MPEG 3, but then MPEG 5 now, and MPEG 6 coming shortly, and surely there's going to be 7 or 8, and it's going to happen about every 8 to 10 years as we get better at that. Also, the display devices, the way we produce OLEDs now, they are getting better and better all the time, so we can eventually get the right resolution in the eye. CDNs are getting smarter and smarter. They're getting much better at the way they're able to lower latency, and they were able to increase their bandwidth. So all of these elements, from the time the content is actually crafted, keeping its artistic intent all the way to the consumption is what this group's all about. So it's very much an end-to-end story. And that's just the first, 8 of these work packages, and we've got more. And you can see in the middle there, that column, there's all the different organizations we will be working with in order to make sure that we influence them in the right direction, prioritize their efforts, etc. And with the kind of membership that we've got, I think it should allow us to be quite influential. So, that's the first thing we've done, though, is start with the common language, and Ariane mentioned it earlier on, and we started with the lexicon out of DCE, which was a good start, but it had a lot of gaps, and I've heard from Ariane at lunchtime that she's getting so many additional requests that she can't handle it. So we need to find a way with some structure we can handle that kind of thing. And it's very well crafted. It has got a lot of rigor to it, so it's not just a list of acronyms with some names. It's much more than that. It kind of gives a lot more context to it. And like I said, it will have to be maintained on a constant basis as we get new and improved parts of our lexicon. So the way it's organized is we've got a term, we've got a category, we've got the acronym, the definition, the core, where it fits in the workflow, etc., and then, if necessary, the reference to the standards defining organization. So it's much more rigorous than just a table of words. And the team that's been working on it has done a great job, and Ariane's done a brilliant job heading it up. So, and this is the categories of that lexicon, just to give you an idea of the complexity. We've tried to break it down into these categories, and we've also tried to break it down into different parts of the workflow as well. So this is all going to be published at CES, we hope, right? And it will be a living and working document, so expect version 1 to be followed fairly quickly with version 2 and 3 and beyond. So that's what we are, who we are, and I encourage you to at least get connected to the VR interest group so you can be on that distribution list as this group of companies try to make a difference across all the swim lanes that we've been talking about. And if you are interested in also becoming a member, there's various membership categories. It's very cheap for small startups to be part of it, and startups, academics, and not-for-profits can get in a fairly cheap way. And to be part of the working groups that will be working on those 16 or so work packages will be very valuable. With that, thank you very much for having me talk to you today. Is there any questions that I could field, or are we going to wait? Oh, there is one. Okay.
Well, I thought I saw a mistake in the chart. Item 2, the branch storytelling, you show that the DPP people are working on this, and then in the next column you say you need studios buy-in. Those contradict each other. As of IBC, it became very clear that the DPP work in componentized DPP, also known as broadcast IMF, is not going to be a SMPTE standard, or at least not necessarily.
This is a different DPP. This is a DPP based out of the UK.
If you want studio buy-in, it seems to me this work will have to go back to the IMF document maintenance group, because if it branches off into DPP, Hollywood's not going to know.
Correct. You're absolutely right. And this is all a work in progress, so forgive me if there's not clarity in here, but the DPP we're referring to here is the small group of people in the UK that are currently working in this space.
But is there overlap between them and the so-called broadcast IMF group who want componentized DPP?
It's a different DPP. That's the problem here. I wish we'd not used that acronym. We could have probably spelt it out. But it's you're right. It does have, the studios are involved in this, and they're heavily involved in this, and also the VR Society. Both of those two organizations, this organization and the VR Society, are going to be addressing this, and it will go through that componentization you talked about. Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you for sharing, and I come from the creative side, not from the alphabet soup that we get a lot here. So I can directly quote filmmakers, directors, and cinematographers who said to me, I did not get into making movies to learn that. So anything that any group can do to create a common language from the tech side, it's understandable on the creative, emotional side.
Right.
Let's face it, it's going to be the directors and the actors who dictate the language, not the techniques. So if you want to commune with them, you're going to have to translate it into what it does emotionally.
Yeah, absolutely. We have CTOs of the major studios are all on this, by the way.
Yes, very much. So we need to find find good shortcuts for a common language and break down the barriers to separate our department. However, coming from the 3D side, which is not dead by any means, no matter what people will try and say, they just call it VR. The problem that held us back before was that, yes, we wound up with these product wars on the monitor side. The Blu-ray people tried to create a standard for the content side, which I was never happy with, but it was a standard. And they ignored the existing infrastructure that we had. All those cathode ray tubes were all 3D capable. We had a built-in infrastructure and didn't use it. Are we going to make that mistake again by trying to get everybody to throw away their sound systems, these headphones and so on? What existing infrastructure is there that we can build this virtual reality world on and other new media formats? What should we preserve and make sure it doesn't get thrown away for this new technology? And are we able to do something about it?
Well, there's a number of things I think the whole world would like to throw away, like TCP/IP, things like that. But there is obviously going to be a reuse of existing infrastructure where possible. But everybody is going to adapt to this. Like I said, the CDNs are already thinking ahead. 5G is already thinking of this. This is why we are personally involved in this so much, because we believe that 5G will become a big pipeline of VR content. And it needs low latency and it needs a high bandwidth, which are the two characteristics of 5G that we're all aiming at. So I don't think it's necessarily existing infrastructure. Some existing infrastructure will morph into being usable, but I think there's new infrastructure that's coming that will make this more usable. So anyway, thank you for that question.
Okay, I'll just stay up here. Let's, can I invite the rest of the speakers to come up and join us for a panel here?